The PepTalk Podcast.
So who do you think the people that are going to come out of this most are the people that are going, really putting forth effort when no one else is, because they're coming up with the excuses to not do it.
Right. Agreed. And you can't call COVID a microcosm of it, but maybe it's a macrocosm if that's a thing. But I think it's a good example of, there's always going to be hurdles and there's always going to be things that can provide excuses or a reason to accept failure or to quit. Failure is not bad, but quitting is, right? And I look at somebody like Ben in his specific situation and his wife, right? Mm-hmm. Liesl, beauty shop or salons and stuff were shut down, not quite as, if you look at the whole COVID thing, not quite to the degree that gyms were, but didn't have it easy. And she was, her business is still new.
Yep.
Yours is established, right?
Barbershops, tat shops got shut down too.
Yeah, and I remember when I was sitting in your chair before the shutdown happened, but COVID was still real, right? It was kind of new and nothing had been shut down yet. And I told you that, if I were in the space that you were in, the tat shop, it would be what was scary for me because you're breaking the skin.
Yep.
From a health standpoint, I'm not a doctor or anything, but just common sense wise, that to me seemed like, ooh, that one's probably going to go.
Yeah, how are we not shut down, but they're shut down?
Well, it seems so hard to understand.
But I think it's more about like when that adversity hit, what did we do?
Yeah.
What did you decide to do? And there's plenty of other things to do that you can, when it comes back, you can be ready. And most people just fold up and say, well, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to sit at home.
Yeah, it's easy to look for an excuse to justify why something doesn't work, right? But I think if you look at successful entrepreneurs, and in every space, but if you're talking about entrepreneurs, they always find they're problem solvers,
right?
The best entrepreneurs find ways to solve problems, and in essence, that's what businesses in a capitalist society do. Is they see areas for improvement or problems that need to be solved, and they fill that space. And I think you could look at the situation we're in now with COVID as one of those situations where there's just a ton of problems that can be solved. And if you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're going to start a business, or if you're going to expand or pivot a business, it's a huge opportunity. It's going to be hard.
It is, but you have to create the mindset. It wasn't that right away for both of us. Neither one of us. Right away, we were like, "Holy, what are we going to do?"
Yeah, I think shock was kind of, shock and maybe even a little bit of like mental shutdown a little bit for me.
And for me, it was automatic. You got adversity. I'm used to adversity. I've had adversity my whole life to where it was like I'm doubling down on everything. And then you need to create that mindset that this is what I'm going to do every single day in order to get the most out of my day.
So did you actually double down on everything though, or was it you doubled down on certain things?
I guess what I meant was like, it's time to, when the adversity hits, it's time to double down on what I can control.
No, I understand that. That's what I'm saying is, how did you pick what to double down on? Like, how do you see the opportunities through adversity? Like, what do you think illuminates that for you? Says this is it.
It's almost like somebody's preventing me from moving forward. By being shut down, it's like I can't move forward. Oh, yes, I can. I can focus on other things that I can control, which was, we decided we were going to sell our house, so we were fixing bathrooms. We remodeled 2 bathrooms. We decided that we want to start a podcast, so we built a studio. We decided to help Ben with his, we got some jobs with Ben over at Snap in the studio, and then we decided to move the tat shop because it was the right timing. And really, in most people's minds, there's no good timing for none of that right now.
Mm.
So it's like, I would have never done all that stuff if I didn't get shut down, maybe. I don't know. I might have just stayed complacent.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think that's the interesting thing is when you get to talk to people in whatever situation they're in, how they perceive a situation and how they move out of it, right? Or how they use it. There are people that just find ways to use everything to their benefit. And I think I'm finding that those people are interesting, right? Those are the people I want to surround myself with. And there's a lot of them. If you don't even have to look that hard, to be honest, there's a lot of really creative, industrious people just in Wilmer. And it's been, I've been exposed to a lot of it simply through, my professional history, but also through the people I've, chosen to be around. And it's really interesting how your mindset can change based on who you're talking to and who you surround yourself with, right? If you're surrounded by people who are looking for ways to grow, not looking for excuses, it kind of pushes you into that mindset too.
It does.
Right?
It does. It does.
You and I have had, I suppose, whatever the time frame is, let's call it the last 2 months. We've had a couple of conversations where we go to Lulu Beans, and sit down and chat. And we've had a lot of good conversations, but the things that always stuck with me out of that is how different our backgrounds are.
Yeah.
We've came from very different upbringings, home situations, life experiences, but we started so far apart, but our kind of goals and directions are not, they're in line. They're not that different at all anymore.
We're completely agree.
Which that's what I've found interesting over the last couple months when we've been talking about things and, watching you pull together, a lot of things at the same time, but let's talk about the podcast specifically in a studio area with, there's going to be more than a podcast in here. But you've got a lot going on.
Let me tell you something, Danny. There's something behind it all that I don't see it. It's like I'm constantly pushing myself heads down to the ground and like, that's done. No big deal. On to the next thing. Because I don't know that there's a true end game, but I have my next 18 months planned out to a T. And I'm trying to always gain consistency on how I go about my day.
So
it's not easy.
When you say you have your next 18 months planned out, how did that happen? Like, how did you plan out 18 months? Because that wasn't always you, right? You didn't always have.
No, it was just every day. What am I going to do today? I just have how did I decide what I'm going to do over the next 18 months?
Well, if we talk about PEP 5 years ago and PEP today, right? PEP 5 years ago didn't have 18 months planned out in front of them.
Well, you said it best. You start putting yourself around the people that, that are trying to grow and not have excuses. I had a ton of people around me that had a lot of excuses. And so did I. If we want to be honest, so did I.
Well, yeah,
you got to get rid of those. And it's taken meditation. It's taken working out. I'm down 70 pounds from a year and a half ago. And it's almost turned into, and it's not every day. You try to gain, I can go 6-7 days straight where you're just full blown, it's like I'm possessed.
Yeah, you're in go mode.
Total possessed. As soon as I leave my house. But you know what it takes? It takes getting up super early. Get those first couple hours by yourself, working out. I'm listening to other people's podcasts.
Yeah.
Tons of them. Like hearing positive. In my brain by 9 o'clock, I'm walking out to my truck and I'm like, and sometimes I leave earlier. And when the gyms weren't shut down, I was doing the 420 and the 730, 6:30 basketball and stuff like that. But it's mind, body, soul, it's health, all that stuff matters. Yeah,
you and I, back at Lulu Beans again, we were talking about just getting the feet on the floor some days, right?
It's hard.
You'll have, a week or two where it's go mode and you wake up and you're ready to go. And then you start you start doing something in the day and then the cards fall and you're productive. And that's a great feeling because you get a lot done. And then somehow that day creeps in where you wake up in the morning and you don't want to get out of bed. You've got the negative thoughts. And that's as I've told you in our other conversations, that's something that I'm not immune to at all. I struggle with that. And it can be, one day in a month, or it can be where it's a whole week where it's like, just get your feet on the floor and get going, Danny.
Have you had those days where you did get your feet on your floor and you turned it into a productive day?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, I had a college professor that I'm an admitted procrastinator for certain things. I didn't like writing papers in college, and my professor always said, just write the first sentence. I don't care what else you do. And every time I did that, I ended up writing paragraphs. Yeah. And I've always, and I don't know a lot of people I've talked to, but specifically my father, and I've talked about this quite a bit, is it frustrates me that there are times when it feels like I'm not in control of my mind, that my mind is in control of me. And if you separate like who Danny is versus like the subconscious or whatever's in there, I've always struggled with it. I should be one thing, right? One being, but there's at least two of me, right? There's the plans, the ideas, and the know what you need to do. And then there's that little monster, the monkey brain, as Rogan likes to call it, inside of you that's pulling you from certain things sometimes.
Telling you just to lay down, take a day off, don't do it. Just
And the thing is, you can submit that thing and beat him down or beat her down for whatever, because it's not always a guy, right? I mean, I have these weird conversations with myself, but most of the time, like I always say, just get your feet on the floor and go.
And building the consistency, but imagine waking up. Your alarm goes off at 4:20, and you don't allow yourself to even hear that. Mm-hmm. It's boom. But everybody might have their own ways of doing it. But like I know my way of doing where that guy can't win because I'm too far ahead in the day. I'm too far ahead of where he can't even talk to me.
Right, and I agreed. As having my wife and kids has really helped with that too. I'm excited I've got a 16-month-old. Every day is different with her. She's growing and like changing every day. So it's impossible 99% of the time not to be excited for that. But as hard as I try and as great as my life is, still have those days where and I can't figure out why. And maybe it's okay not to figure out why, but they're less and less. I think it's basically a discipline thing.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that I don't have them.
I know.
But what I do want to say is like when I'm in the phase of controlling them.
Yep.
And that's a good place to be because like if you can find a way to dominate that, you're going to have multiple days. And another thing for me is like I got a lot of people counting on me. I got a team. I got 4 guys working over there, 2 guys working over here. I got a team if sometimes that gave me the motivation to not have excuses today.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's right, because it can't always be about yourself, right? And it's great to strive for personal pride and aspirations, but I think it was Betsy Bonema that said one time is if you ever want to achieve your dreams, first help somebody else achieve theirs. And that, I'm going to guess 3 years ago is when I heard her say that out at workup. And that always stuck with me is, this idea of it being service to someone else. Now, not all of life has to just be for someone else. That's not what I'm saying. But, you feel good. And you always get energized when you help somebody else create or achieve, right?
Yeah.
And so I've kind of liked that idea. I can't say I've lived by it 100% all the time, but, if that is, when I'm struggling to get something done for me, I have, learned if I can help, if it's just not working, if the motivation or whatever isn't there for me to do what I need to do, if I focus on helping somebody else do what they need to do or want to do, it was fun to give something. It's fun to give people presents. It's fun, whatever, in whatever form or shape that is, that helps re-energize me. And I don't know why it works, but I was always really, I guess, grateful that I got to hear Betsy say that.
Yeah, when you give, you get, Danny.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me tell you a quick story. My most productive business is actually the tat shop. I'm doing better there than the barber shop. Most people wouldn't know that or think that. But the reason being is I had a guy walk into my establishment a few years back, and he had a dream that wanted to be a tattoo artist in his own shop. And first I didn't take him serious. I was like, we're going to have to do these changes. And then one day he got me the right way. He came at me the right way. And I just said, I'm going to help this guy. And that's like killing it. And
who is it?
David Garcia.
Okay, yeah.
Street.
We've talked about him.
But that, I helped him get what he wanted, like you talked about.
Yeah.
And look, it's the best business I own.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's giving you the ability or a platform to expand on yours as well, right? So by helping him, right.
And now that we're sitting with 6 people,
One picking out paint colors for a.
Yeah, exactly. For a new place. But it feeds right. All those guys are excited for the chance too.
Yeah.
So you get.
Yeah, and you always, whether you're actually the business owner or somebody working in a business, there has to be a part of it that's yours, right? For you to be motivated to be there, in whatever form or shape that is. You have to have aspirations and, achievable, like level ups, if you want to call them that. because that's what we're built on, right? That's why we love sports, competition, poker, whatever it is.
Yep.
We want to have the chance or the opportunity with no guarantee. I think that's, for me, I think the idea of a guaranteed outcome or this guaranteed equality of outcome is not a good thing, because the chance that you can fail and the reality of failure is important. Because if you won all the time,
right?
Like so I love golf. I play a lot of competitive golf. If I never lost in golf, what would winning mean to me?
Nothing.
Right? Because
absolutely nothing.
It's without loss. I mean, that's what I mean. I know. I can think of specific times in my life that I've been more motivated, and if we're talking about golf specifically, I've been more motivated to go out and grind to get better at something, so I didn't have to feel that again.
Right. Feel that loss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one specific golfer in Wilmer over my lifetime that has beat me more than anybody, and I love him as a person. I do. But I hate losing to him. I hated it. And he just beat me and beat me and beat me. But it got me to go out and practice the things that I wasn't good at, that weren't fun to practice. And I slowly got better and started started winning sometimes.
Yeah, people think they can just win without that preparation, though.
Yeah, but I mean, it took that. I mean, I'd go home and I'd be mad, angry, for days.
I would be too.
I mean, it wasn't just like an hour after I'd have a beer and be good. I'd be mad for days. And this is a 27-hole one-day golf tournament that means nothing. Nobody knows about it.
I feel that way at 6:30 basketball in the morning with the guys.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like failure isn't bad.
Go home and tell my boy, hey, I beat Jude's dad. We beat him. We beat him today.
Or when Q snaps an iPad.
Yeah.
I mean, so I mean, it's like, sure.
But Danny, I've instilled that into him since he was little. Like, you're going to compete.
Yeah.
And that kid, this is everything I could ever hope to be for a boy.
Yeah, I know. It's been fun.
Bless,
it's been fun to hear you talk about Q, over the last couple of months, because he's at an age now where he can do a lot of things on his own and really kind of be creative. Mm-hmm. Like, I remember when you put out the video of him just shaking a guy in football, just absolutely a plant and go.
It was a blast.
Right, but I mean that's years and years of him watching, doing, dreaming, wanting, right? And then
the preparation was put in.
And then we get to see one video, right? And it's a really good example of Q didn't just all of a sudden plant and go. I mean, you guys have been throwing the ball around.
He's been playing and go since he was 2.
Right. I mean, so it's the, I don't know what the line is, but the 10-year overnight success, that it's a kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing, but there's no such thing as an overnight success, right?
Not at all.
It's all about, and I told you this, I had this, like, I was kicking around these ideas, and the idea of, like, that there is no summit, right? You remember when we talked about this, that there is, like, when you talk about summiting Everest or something like that. In life, there really is no place the idea of planting a flag and being done, right?
Especially as an entrepreneur.
But in general, as a dad, as a husband, as a friend,
it's true.
In anything. Like, the whole idea is that it's this constant evolution and growth. And that should be the fun part. I mean, and it's not always going to be easy or fun, but in general, like, the fruits of your labor, like, not just enjoying them, but getting to, to watch you and the people around you grow and move towards.
It's important to give yourself permission to look back on that and know that you did grow.
Yeah,
like, I've made that mistake. I'm realizing that now.
Yeah,
growth happened.
Yeah, I think it was yesterday or the day before, I was just having a tech conversation with a friend of mine who's quite a bit younger, but he's in med school. He's on a 6-week prep right now to take his boards. And we had a long text conversation, and I texted him this. I told him I was rereading the text. So I texted him, I said, I reread our text, and I said my favorite line. And the text was, he said, it's not a question of if I pass, but, his actual score on his board exams matter, because to get into these specialties, it matters. And I said, tell you what, the reason that's my favorite line is that's who I want to be my doctor. Because it wasn't said with any amount of arrogance, but he's prepped so much, he cares about what he's doing so much, and he has a path that it's not a question of whether he passes or not. It's just of how high the score is.
Going to pass?
Right.
That's awesome.
And so So I told him this, and I followed up with it and said, the reason I tell you this, like that I was so impressed with it, is that I want you to sometimes look back on everything you've done to get to where you are today.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work, and it means something. So I mean, don't pacify that, because it's you've put in a lot of time, and that's important to remember. How much you've put in, and be proud of yourself. And we've got a good relationship, and we talked about it a little bit. And I said, these aren't unique ideas to me. I'm just passing along the things that people that I've been around have shared as well. But the idea of looking back, sometimes just what they call stopping to smell the roses, is important. You need to enjoy that too. It's all part of the journey. It's all part of the path, the progression. It's not about the ending, because it's. They make the joke a lot, with marriage, it ends two ways, in divorce or death. But marriage isn't about an ending, right? It's about spending your life with somebody. So entrepreneurship or friendship and things like that are not about the ending of it. Like, what's the end to a friendship? Does anybody ever look at it that way?
No.
So why do we look at everything else that way, or a lot of other things that way?
We do.
Doesn't make any sense. It's supposed to be the journey and the experience, right? Because that's all life is.
Ben and I were just talking about that today. We were over for tea time, how he calls it, at 3:00, and he said, and he needed to chat with me, so I go over and chat with him, and I look at his big whiteboard. He's got lists, lists.
I'm guilty of that.
It's all written down, and I'm just like, what can I say to this guy so he's not overwhelmed? And maybe he's not, but we're trying to we bond, we talk, and we sat there for about an hour, and he said, I said, when all that's done, you're not done. So don't look at it like, when this is done, I'm going to be so happy. It's going to be great. Everything's going to feel better, because that list's not going to stop.
No, it just gets bigger.
Yeah. And kind of had that moment, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. And
then what does it do? It puts you in the moment that you are creating, that you are doing something, instead of focusing on, well, when I get here, then I'm going to feel happier. I'm going to be happier here. Be happy right now. Be happy doing it. Be happy on the grind. Be happy every day that you're getting the chance to do the things that you want to do.
Yep. I mean, I totally agree. And
so it's about a mindset. You got to lock that mindset in.
Agreed. And I am not an organized person. So when you talk about lists, it's something I've kind of learned to do. But so I started with, it's called bullet journaling, right? So basically you make short, less than a sentence list of things to do.
Yeah.
And, my list would be 4 pages long. I mean, it's an insurmountable task. There's just not enough time in the day to do some of this, any of the stuff that's on that list, let alone half of it. And so I realized that I was just setting myself up for failure. But bullet journaling is a process, right? So it's supposed to teach you, so you keep moving things back, or you keep weeding things out, stuff like that. But the thing it made totally apparent to me is I way overestimate what I can get done in a day.
I do the same exact thing.
And I have, when you get, it's the out of the shower moment for me, ready to go, right? On those days that I just can't wait to get out there and do stuff. And my list is too big. And what I found is that when you have that list that's insurmountable, when you have goals that are not achievable, it's almost impossible to be satisfied or happy or feel like the day was a success. So, and I'm still not good at it. I'm working on it. I have a much smaller one now, like a field journal that I do. And I'd still say pretty much on average, I get half of my list done a day. That's it.
I'm the exact same way, Danny. I was the exact same way for a long time, but then I had to change that. And I call it you did enough today.
Yeah.
It's time to go home, go be with your kids. See your girl.
Yep.
Be the family guy, and I know how to shut it off. I used to do that. I used to go home and have insomnia for months. Mm-hmm. I'm not kidding, because I'd walk laps until the birds were chirping. But it was because I was always thinking about what I got to do tomorrow, and I didn't get enough done yesterday. And I'm trying to get to where I want to be. Now I figured out a way to shut the light off.
How did you do that?
It took tons of meditation, telling myself that it's okay to just you did as much as you can in this amount of time, and it's time to shut it off. And there's some days that I don't shut it off, or I do a couple more hours. I can get that in. But at the same time, in order to I really hate the word balanced because I don't think there's anything balanced about me.
Yeah, the idea of work-life balance.
Yeah, and a kid and family balance and all the balance that you need to do. I just don't think that anybody could ever. If you got big dreams, you're going to be unbalanced sometimes.
Yeah,
right? Things ain't going to be balanced. But to be able to shut it off, it took meditation and just to affirm myself that I really did do enough today. And then to look back on it. But the days that suck are the days that you talked about earlier. Is like when the demons got you. Mm-hmm. You're like, I just don't feel like doing nothing. And then then by the end of the day, well, how do you feel? Just like a loser.
You feel like it's a wasted day.
Like a stray loser, right?
Yeah, it's a wasted day.
Wasted day, wasted time. I could have got so much done, and it'll drag in for a few days if you let it.
Yeah, so two things on that. One is I'm still working on the shutting it off. I know it's important, and I make a concerted effort to do it, but I'm not good at it. But on the thing that I'm getting better at now is being okay with having a day that's not uber productive. Right, where my to-do list isn't 32 items long and I get 30 done, right? Whatever it is. That never happens. But I think if this is all predicated on most of the days, like when you talk about a diet, right? If you give yourself 6 days where you diet really well and have a cheat day, you only get that cheat day if you did the 6 days of really well. So I'm going to preface this by saying this only works for me if I really can look inside and say, I really did do everything within reason I could today or for the week. But you got to have days off, right? Every day can't just be about one like spearheaded focused goal for 6 years.
Unless there's deadlines that you can't control, stuff needs to get done.
Sure. I mean, those are always going to be there. But what I'm saying is you need to have days.
I agree.
Even many parts of the day, like you were just talking about shifting to Family Guy, mm-hmm. right? And I think where I still do, is where those different parts of me, the different hats I'm wearing, are being worn at the same time, right? Where you're working while you're at home, you're taking care of like your side gig stuff too, and then you're trying to be at dinner, right? Yeah. And so you're not giving, full attention to anything. And while being busy feels productive, but it rarely is. Being focused for me is productive, right? So if I can focus on something and just get it done, that's why I like the to-do list. If I can actually cross something off that I put on that to-do list, that means I was focused. I did something and it's done. But you ever had those days where like you feel like you're super busy, the whole day just was nonstop, but you didn't get anything done? You look around
and what did you really get done?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my biggest fight, my biggest struggle internally is to find a way not to have those days. And for me, it is to actually have less to do, which sounds odd. But if I have less to do, if there's less on my to-do list, if I can triage it and find out what's important, and then have your pivot times, your shut-off times, where it's like be with my family now, because that's really why we do. It's not why I do everything. I'm not going to give that line, right? A lot of the things that I want to do, whether they're in business or hobbies, are for me. It's not just to produce a better life for my family. I mean, I know that's what a lot of people say.
That's what you want to do.
Yeah, and that's a part of it. I do want the best for my family, and I do want to provide opportunities for it, but I also take pride in it.
I think that's an important point, though, Danny, is that for a long time, I didn't focus on that at all. Like, what am I doing for me? Like, what do I really want to do? It's kind of like the football player that all of a sudden didn't want to play football no more, and everyone's like, but that's what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt it the way as a barber. I still love cutting hair, and I'll never stop cutting hair, but it was almost like, that's the only thing you can do. You're a barber, that's it. And I couldn't stand that. How, like, you know what I mean? Like, how I can do more, I want to do more, but then life happens, kids happen, this happens, and then you just kind of you're stuck there, and then you get that label of like, well, you're just a barber.
You just cut hair.
Yeah, you just play football.
Right.
You just play golf.
Right.
You're more than just a golfer. You know that. And then I started focusing on, this is about a year and a half ago, and then it got better and better as months went by, to where certain things were said by friends or whatnot that totally triggered it to where it was like I just started loving myself. A lot of people don't love themselves. If they want to be completely honest with themselves, they give them a chance to do the things. Well, what do I want to do in my life? What do I want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the loving yourself thing. I think is one of the, it's not overlooked because it's talked about all the time. But I think it's a much larger and more difficult task than most people understand, and it's different for everybody.
It took over a year.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's
train that I can love myself.
Yeah, everybody's got different hurdles to cross to get there. But I remember because you have made a concerted, outward change in not only your personal, like you're putting out positive vibes, but also in your social media. But I remember specifically when I kind of saw the light, if you will, the light switch flip for you, and the way I viewed what you were saying is when you started talking about being a barber, not as cutting hair, but as the conversations you have.
Yeah.
You said I don't remember the number is, but thousands of people in my chair. And I remember when I saw that, and then shortly thereafter, most of your conversations were framed about positivity and, conversations with people about other people.
And you would say it's probably about 2 years back.
Yeah.
I mean, it was around the time the merry-go run.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously I know you in a different way than a lot of the people that are on your social media, but,
yep.
We'll have times where we have a lot of conversations, and then we'll have times where, we're just both busy.
Yep.
So the only way I see it is through social media for you. But it was right after that when you started talking about being a barber, not as cutting hair, but as the conversations you have with people, I noticed that your messages were more about positivity for other people, right? It was no longer just about Pep, and I'm not saying it always was, but there was a very concerted effort or focus on community, and doing things like your line of hold the door for somebody, open the door for somebody, right?
Yeah.
This idea of, just paying it forward, do something nice for somebody else. I remember specifically when you started talking about the number of conversations you had, because I think it reframed, and I could be stepping out here, but in my mind, the way I saw it was it looked like it reframed the way you looked at what you were doing. Rather than a task, it was
right.
Part of who you are and being part of the community. It didn't matter if you were cutting hair, changing oil, whatever. You viewed it as the people that were coming in, and the conversations are what mattered.
I think it's because I allowed myself to feel supported.
Yeah.
And when I felt supported, I felt a sense of obligation, in a good way. Like I was.
Oh, I think that's very important.
Like I'm obligated. Like I got people that support me. I got people that made my business what it is today. And then I had, a lot of people go and vote for me when I ran for a couple of different things in town.
Yeah, I got to say, man, that's the idea. And I've been, I remember I was talking with Brett Casel actually at the VFW, and he asked me if I would, if that was, and it wasn't like he was saying, oh, you should run for something. He asked me if it's something that I would ever consider, and my honest answer was no. And at the time, my answer to him was, that being in the public spotlight like that isn't for me. I wouldn't have any problem. I actually probably would enjoy being on somebody's campaign or, whatever it is, but I wouldn't want to be the front guy, like doing what Dave Baker does. I've said that's just not who I am. And I think the truth is I'm scared. I mean, and I don't mean that but it's a daunting task.
Dustin tells me this all the time. Some of the things, it goes back to what you said, just get the first sentence written.
Yeah.
Just like getting started, like we're doing today.
Yeah.
It's the first podcast.
Yeah.
And a lot led up to this, and like it's easy. It's not that hard.
No,
but it's hard. Like you talked about the essay,
Yep.
Right, the first sentence.
Yeah, so a podcast, and I think that's actually a pretty good correlation. So a podcast that's going to be put out, and if 2 or 2 million people listen to it, whatever, it's still going to be out there, right? So what you say is out there for interpretation in whatever way whoever the viewer or listener is interprets it.
Right. It's important who you pick to have come talk.
Yeah, but it's also kind of, you're giving up control when you do that, right? So when you and I have a conversation, if it's just you and me in a closed room, and if something comes off in a way that I didn't intend it or didn't want to, we have the conversation, then we talk through that. With an audience, right, that's not actually here, so you're giving up all of that control, right? It's open for interpretation, and what I'm saying is being running for office. Man, I mean, look at what just went on with the presidential election, and still going on, but Trump or Biden,
right.
Whatever side you're on, whatever you believe in, can you imagine being either one of those two guys right now? It'd be terrible. I think it'd be terrible.
I think it depends upon what they feel their sense of purpose is.
No, I agree with that, but the process,
yeah,
like it seems like a less than a zero-sum game if that's even a thing. But I mean, I would never want to do that. Now, at the local level, you look at somebody like Andrew Plowman. But again, his run and then time in office hasn't been all roses either, right? I mean, there's those Facebook. I don't think they're as active now, or at least I'm not aware of them. But the town crier, and I apologize if I don't remember the other names, but there was a lot of differing opinions for local views on politics that were there, and it wasn't always just political standpoint. Some of it got, I don't know, pretty nasty. And so you're taking that. I know you've been through it too, but I mean, if you're talking about,
I embraced it though, Danny.
I know, but
I embraced it to where it wasn't even a negative in my mind. I was like, I am who I am, and I'm moving forward. Like,
and I admire that. I really do. But when I look at it, and not everybody's fit for it, right? And to this day, I'll openly admit that part of it is probably just, I don't know if fear is the right word, but hesitation, or I don't want to expose myself to it. And there's enough, we do have, especially here locally, I think we're fortunate that we have a lot of people that are interested in running for whether it's school board or city council and things like that. And I think that's wonderful. So thank goodness I don't have to, sure. We don't need anybody. We'll let people like you go ahead and do it. Cause
there'll be plenty of us.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a good thing, right? Well,
it goes back to what I was saying is like, you feel a sense of, purpose and obligation to the people that support you. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I have a lot of support. Yeah. But I've earned that support by caring about them.
Yeah.
A lot of the people that are in my life, like, I remember a long time ago, a mentor told me, he's like, every bridge that you make, every time you meet somebody, it's like a bridge. You might not see them for 4 or 5 more years, but if you have that positive impact on them. And I just started naturally doing that. Like I think I've naturally done it my whole life. It's just when you're younger, you got to deal with a lot more things. And like you talked about in the beginning, we've had 2 separate paths. Mm-hmm. We can probably talk about that on another podcast.
Yeah, we could have a couple hours on that in general, but
it's like I think I built a lot of those bridges, and then at the same time, I think it's a natural. It's like human nature that when you see someone get beat down, but he won't quit, he won't die, he's not going to go away. There's something.
Yeah, you respect that.
You respect that, and then you gain that respect. I had a guy a few weeks back that I was about to go to a party bus out there at Water and saw the boys out there, and the guy yells across the bar, and I was like, I don't know if this is going to be a good thing or a bad thing, but he's like, are you Pep? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, at least you try. I thought, and he was a little tuned up, and so it was a lot louder. But, like, that felt good, man.
Yeah.
Because it's true.
Well, and it kind of goes back to...
And that's back to the PepTalk stuff, the stuff that you see on Facebook. I'm just trying to get other people to see that they can do it, too.
Yeah, and that has a positive impact on you, too, right? By putting out those... it kind of sets the tone for you, too, for the day. It's like you kind of now are obligated to live by that, right?
Yeah, and it's a struggle at times.
Sure.
But overall, I try to live by it and I try to push.
Well, so I have this theory, and it's not my own, but I try to... When I'm thinking about things, pretty much... Now, we can find extremes for this that don't work, but pretty much if you just always choose whatever's harder, I think you're going to be okay. So like if you've got a choice in front, let's say you find a wallet on the ground.
The hardest thing is to give it back.
Well, the hardest thing is to try to find that person and get it back to them, right?
That's true.
The easiest thing to do is to take the cash and dump the wallet, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And, that's an extreme example, but if you go to anything, if whatever is hardest, whatever is like that little monkey in your brain, that little monster that's trying to convince you not to do something, if you just do that, unless it's a really bad thing. Right. But you get what I'm saying. Like, like going to the gym, right? It's harder to go to the gym than to sit on the couch and eat cookies.
So when that alarm goes off, just go.
Right? But if you can, and like Jocko Willink is the beast of this. But if you just always do it, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't. But if you always do, I mean, if that's your intention at least, it seems like imagine how good you'd feel after like a day and then a week and then a month of just really doing that. But I'm getting all of this is the pep talk. It's not easy to be like if you're in a situation where somebody is just completely out of line and rude to you. I mean, you let it go and you just assume they're having a bad day and just whatever. That's fine. Go ahead. That's harder than getting mad at them, right?
Because your pride wants to jump up right away and say,
Sure.
But I think if that happened to me, I would automatically think like, okay, this guy he's got some other problems that are happening. Internally, he probably don't love himself or whatever, just to keep myself calm because I'm not going to do nothing stupid.
Well, and I can put myself in those positions where I've acted impulsively and that kind of stuff. And typically it's something else happened. There was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I have to assume that most people don't want to be mad at other people, right? So something had to have happened during the day. But anyway, the whole point of this is like, where do you think that comes from? Like, why is the hardest stuff what you should do? Why is junk food taste good? Why is going to the gym suck? All of the things you should like that if you sat down and thought about it, they're the best thing for you. But why are they so much harder? Like, why is all the stuff that has a negative effect on your life easy and attractive?
And looking back on that now, as I hear all that, it's just easy to have excuses. It's easy to have excuses because I don't find all that stuff hard anymore unless the demons come, right? So like if you can mentally prep yourself, I call it warrior assassin mode, where I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna have a great day. And self-affirmation is huge.
Yep.
I gotta tell myself, calm it down, you're all right, okay, let's get over here, let's do this. All day long I talk to myself, I'm sure you do too. Like,
yeah, and that it reminds me of how we've raised our two girls. So I've got a 6-year-old and I've got a 16-month-old. And so with my oldest, I wouldn't say it's a rule, but one of the things we reinforce with her is that can't is not a word we use. You can ask for help, but we don't say I can't do this or I can't do that. We say, Dad or Mom, can you help me do this? Right? Because we didn't want her to grow up with an idea that she needed others to be able to pursue the things that she wanted, right? And I mean, we're fortunate to have a wonderful daughter, 2 wonderful daughters, but I really do think it matters the language you use with yourself and when and it's very apparent when you're talking with your kids, right? So I'm guilty of this, right? I drink too much soda, pop for us Minnesotans.
Sure.
But we don't have it in the house. I mean, I'll buy one and drink it, and because I know it's bad for my daughters, right? I don't want them to grow up drinking all of the sugar and stuff. But it's very hypocritical of me to then go drink it in another space. So it really, parenting has really illuminated kind of the self-talk thing that you're talking about, the self-affirmations, because the things we say to our kids are about how we can understand, think of things rationally, and then problem solve, right? And then build ourselves up and realize that if we try and fail and we get up and do it again, that's what it's all about. And that's easy to say to your kids. It's always easy to give good advice. It's hard to follow it.
True.
So, I mean, it kind of, turns a mirror back on you when you start parenting, when you have these huge aspirations for your kids to be happy and, fulfilled people, right? And so you want all that for them, it's pretty easy to pick the path out, like what they need to do. But then when you turn that mirror back on yourself and realize that you need to continue to do that too, it's a little bit eye-opening. Yeah,
as you were talking, I was thinking about how's it around my house. I know that if I have a good day, my whole family usually has a good day. If I'm having a bad day and I'm in the bedroom, doors shut, just no communication, none of that stuff because the demons came along. So I feel a sense of obligation to not do that.
Yeah.
For this podcast, I went home for a couple hours, turned into dad for a little while, and ate dinner. Refresh on the back. It's because I felt like I had to go do that to be right, to feel good, to feel like I've done, even though it's not balanced like everybody thinks it should be, it was enough. And they got to see me today because I've been gone all day.
Yeah. Well, and that's why when you asked the time for this, that's why I gave you the time we did, right? Because, I went home and one of my favorite things is right before bedtime with my kids. It's fun because we have a routine, but it doesn't feel routine. Sure. It's dinner and bedtime are two of, right in the morning too, because both of my girls are complete morning people. I admittedly am not, but it's very easy to be excited in the morning when you've got these two girls that are just excited for the day. So like there's certain portions of the day like you're talking about that are really important, and that's why we picked the time we did for this is because like those are non-negotiable for me most of the time.
And I've learned to have those. I didn't have those before. I would go 3 weeks working straight, 21 straight days, barely ever home, because I had something to prove, or my pride was on the line, or I got to have this whole, like telling Ben, all that list's going to be done in 21 days, and I'm just going to go. Sometimes that's healthy, in my opinion.
Yeah,
that's how stuff gets done. Like when you go
absolutely. And it's not about. I'm not somebody that works where I'm going to do 4 hours of this, 4 hours of that, and 4 hours of this every day of my life. Sometimes it's like 20 hours, just straight through, and then I'm energized for 2 weeks after that.
Sure.
Right, and then it's normal like business. But there are times that I need that. And then, like I said, there's times I just need the day off. I need what you call a mental health day, if you will.
Yesterday I took off, went to see my daughter, and went up and recharged, went and saw where I grew up, and drove on back. I get it.
You and I have talked about a lot of stuff, but one of the things that we always come back to is we talk about our, the people that, are, for you, Megan, for me, Shannon. And I think it's impossible to overestimate how much having like a supportive counterpart makes for this. So I'll give you the reason I was thinking about this was, so today is December what? Because this matters for the point of the conversation. December 9th in Minnesota. Atwater Golf Course, Island Pine was open today. Mm-hmm. And last night, I said, guess what I'm doing tomorrow? And she's like, what? And I said, I'm going to go golf on December 9th. And the only thing she said is, that's awesome. Have fun.
Yeah, I sent Megan some messages that we were going to do the first podcast today. I was doing it with you. And she said, cool exclamation mark.
Yeah. So it's... And it wasn't always...
So the affirming that they support you is huge.
Yeah, and like huge. Truly being behind you. So, and it's true with your friends, you're the people you hire or the people you work with, all of that matters. But I think to a little bit larger of a degree, at least in my life, Shannon matters even that much more because I care way more if Shannon is happy for me and with what I'm doing and what we're doing than I do about any of my friends or any of my business. I really do, because like that is my core, right? So, but it wasn't always that way for us, right? There was some grudges held, even though we loved each other and things like that. As we've learned to communicate better, she knows what's important to me, right? And over the last couple of years, this is all relative when I say this because I golf a lot. But over the last couple of years, I haven't golfed as much as I used to. And I used to golf a lot, or even more than a lot. But I think she kind of understands how important golf is to me for kind of reset and, my away from business and things like that. And so like it's just so nice when I have a chance to do something like that. And this is a small thing, but it means a lot. It's just, for like true support. Like she was truly excited that I got to go play golf today.
So what changed? Kind of a loaded question because I have an answer for that.
Sure. You mean with our communication?
No, with she wasn't always like that, but she is.
Yeah. So sure. So I kind of answered your question right there. It's our communication. So And it takes effort, and we have a specific friends that are couples, like that have kind of been our mentors for this, so to speak, and they have amazing communication. It's extremely open and honest and loving, but it's not always like lovey-dovey, right? It's always about love, but they're honest with each other. And so, over the last, I'd say 3 to 5 years, we've made a concerted effort, and there's ups and downs with how well it goes, but we've made it a concerted effort to be more open with each other and not be afraid to say when we want something or when something isn't what we want. So as we've gone through that, it does become easier, and there's less of that kind of latent fear of saying something and then not only not getting what you want, but also there being being kind of held against you, if you will. So as you continue to do it, as you flex that muscle, it's just gotten easier and easier. And it becomes more common, and there's no more, there's less guessing games. When I tell her that I want to do something like golf, she knows that I really want to do it, and it's not like I'm kind of. And I'll be honest, in the past, I just would have gone and then texted her while I was there because I was going to go either way. And that's a really bad situation to be in, right? Because I feel guilty about it. I don't have as much fun golfing. And then she's, has no idea what's going on. And then I end up, because golf's not a short event. It's 4 hours minimum for 18 holes. So getting through that. And then she also has, as do I, the permission to say, you can't. I need this, or we have this going on, right? But that is also prevented, too, by communication. Because I know that there was no event going on today. We didn't have plans. So, it just worked.
My relationship changed when one thing happened, and it's going to revert back to what we talked about before. When I started to love myself and started focusing on me. Because there's a lot of things that I put these unrealistic expectations on that I should be getting from her. Like, you should love me. You should do this for me. You should do this. You should do this, that, because...
You wanted all the things from her that you weren't giving yourself?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you know what? She told me for a long, long time to do that, and I didn't listen. But when I did, and then the communication, of course, but it really changed when I started just loving myself, because if you love and respect yourself, you're going to want to treat your significant other better. Yeah.
So when we were over in my garage the other day, we talked about this a little bit, and it's a weird thing, but I think it'll make sense when I say it. Is so people can smell or taste desperation, right? But the people that don't need anything from you, you want to give them stuff, right? You want to be around that.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with all these relationships. In my opinion, or my experience, is when, and I think that comes from what you're saying of loving yourself, right? Once you respect and love yourself, you know that. So if you take it back to high school, right, and you think about so for me, I'll speak personally for me. Like if I wanted to ask a girl out, and you can think of like the dichotomy of the two people that could do that. The one that was excited about it, but if she said no, it's okay. I can go ask somebody else out. And then there's one that's like, well, who else? Like, this is my only shot. I have to get this one. Like,
sure.
The one that has to get this one or feels like that's their only shot or ever. That's not an attractive thing, right? We want somebody with options, and we choose to be with them and they choose to be with us. Now, the other side of it is when somebody's excited to go out with and experience that. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. We'll go find somebody else that wants to be with me, because I respect myself and I don't want to be pining after somebody that doesn't feel the same way about me. When you have that respect and love for yourself, it's attractive, right? You call it aura, call it presence, whatever you want. But you can see that in people, the way they carry themselves, the way they talk, the way they look at you, whatever it is. So, it's the old adage, is like, you can't love somebody else till you love yourself.
Can't. And for a long, long time, I didn't do that.
How long ago we were just saying that is like, that's a hard thing to do. It's hard to accept yourself. It's easy to accept, to pick out your own flaws, right? It's easy to tear yourself down. At least it is for me. But to look yourself in the mirror and be okay with saying, these are the things I'm good at and I'm proud of, not always easy.
Yeah, I had to, really hold myself accountable. Look in the mirror and, really talk to yourself. A lot of people can't do that. Where you just be completely honest with yourself.
Yeah, that's hard.
It is.
So does anything stick out, like either a thing, an event, like the first time you did that when you kind of called yourself out on something? Like just you?
I just got sick of having excuses. There was a lot of excuses. Then you can run out of excuses for everybody, right?
Yeah.
So I was at the point where I'm just out of excuses. So what are you going to do?
So I have on that. When you talk about making excuses for yourself, we all do it. Did you ever have that issue with making excuses for your employees, for like kind of in your own mind for them, like justifying bad or improper behavior or work ethic, or was it only for yourself?
I got a great staff.
I know,
and it's because I always held them to the high expectations. Like, we're going to do a great job, this and that, but. You can still have plenty of excuses and still run a great business.
But I mean, what I'm saying, and I don't want to lead a horse to water here. I'm saying, did you give them the amount of leeway that you gave yourself before you started holding yourself accountable?
Not at all.
No? Why do you think that was?
Because of a lot of dark. I know you're going to go with this, Dave.
No, I actually don't have. I promise, I don't have a.
I think it's everything that ever happens to you, from being younger to adolescent, all the way up through everything that I've been through, and we could talk about that for hours.
Well, I'll tell you why I don't have an answer for this or where I'm going is because, as you know, I'm on the precipice of opening up my own business here and having employees. So I'm not leading you anywhere here. I'm curious as to it because. I've experienced the same things personally with the looking at yourself in the mirror, but I'm curious as to how that manifested with your employees. If it was, and it sounds like it was completely different.
I carried myself different around them in the beginning, like when they know me now. They know me as a person, but it was like I held them to high expectations, but I didn't do that to myself at the time. But then it switched. When I started loving myself, now my expectations are way, way higher on myself, managed. But I don't know. It's kind of one of them questions where I circle back all the way to. I just thought I wasn't nobody, dude. Like inside, but no one knew that. And I was on a constant strive of like, how am I gonna show everybody? Actually, this was pointed out to me yesterday. It was more about proving it to myself.
Proving what?
That anything that's in front of me that I want to pull off, I'm going to pull off.
Oh, okay. I get you.
Yeah. And sometimes that don't work out in your favor because you find yourself in a position where I don't really like this anymore. And then what's that going to look like? What are people going to say? So then you're off to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and you're trying to find your way.
What are people going to say?
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Yeah. At the time.
Mm-hmm.
But then you can get to the point where you just don't care. You care about the people in your circle, what they say, what your people that love you.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things, I don't know how, you can take this in a number of different ways, and I think I actually have through phases, but realizing that people just don't think about you that much was important for me. You know what I mean? Is we're all so wrapped up in ourselves, and a lot of times we have a lot of stuff that we need to sort out about ourselves, and we need to focus on it. But I just, at this point in my life, I find it hard to believe that many people think about me at all. Other than when they're around me, and I'm totally okay with it. In fact, I like that. But as different emotional states or phases in your life, it kind of feels like when you replay a conversation that you had like a week ago that just pops up in your head, and you figure that person is mad at you or whatever because the way it went on. The truth is they probably
not even thinking about it
since they no longer saw you. They haven't thought about it since.
Right.
And that's a little bit freeing. Or a lot of it, depending on how much you think about that, or how much that weighs you down. But when I realized that I'm just not that important to the people outside of my circle, and it's not that I don't have an impact and things like that, but we all have our own circles, and they're all the things that we need to deal with on a daily basis. And there's only so much you can ingest. So it a little bit that kind of made, that was a portion for me that kind of made things a little bit easier. I didn't have to worry or think about so many things.
My mind works crazy. Like I always think like, if I do this, that, this is going to happen, and he or she, and this and that, and that, and that, and that, and I do that all day long.
The PepTalk Podcast.